Thanks so much for joining us for the screening. And I know she's not here, but we want to say thanks so much to Becky, the director, for doing the personalised introduction for us. The whole team's been amazing with like kind of sharing this message. So I'm Elizabeth. I run the Norah Store, which is a clothing shop online clothing store based in Stockport, and I share a studio space with Natasha, Faye and Eve, who all run their own sustainable clothing businesses. So I think we're going to just have a chat about Manchester sustainable fashion and running our own businesses, and kind of like respond to any questions that you might have, although we're not directly involved with the film, that you might have about kind of how slow fashion works, or how you can kind of shop more sustainably in your day-to-day life. So do you want to all introduce yourselves?
Are you sure? Yeah. Hi, my name's Natasha. I am the founder, designer, and one of two amazing women that make the bags at Roop. My little tagline is that I'm ruched and responsible. All my fabrics are either completely sustainable or they are dead stock or vintage. I started a couple of years ago and I just kept going from there, really. I shared the studio with Elizabeth, like she said. We met from her stocking my bags. And yeah, I'll give this to Faye.
Hi, I'm Faye. So I'm the founder and designer at Evie Joynes, which is a slow fashion brand, again based in the same studio. And my focus is to make comfy clothes for women. So using like really nice soft stretch fabrics, and I try to use all natural fabrics, dead stock fabrics, and make everything to order to make it as sustainable as possible.
Hi, I'm Eve. So I'm the founder of Sandwith Studio, which is a small knitwear brand, I guess. I've only graduated in June, so fairly new to it all, but predominantly do knitted accessories, but kind of moving towards garments. I mainly try to use natural fibres and make everything by hand in our studio.
So we're going to have a chat, and then there will be a chance if you want to ask any questions at the end. So first thing is, how do you work sustainability into your practice, and what does that mean? Because I know that word sustainability can be, well, as they said, it doesn't. It doesn't have any kind of legislation behind that word, so it can be tricky to kind of define, but I think each brand has their own kind of way of working towards that, so it'd be good to chat about that.
So before I had Roop, I was a nanny and I was just sewing as a hobby, and I also worked part-time in a shop some of you might know called Abercan. And downstairs in Abercan, all the bins of fabric, they are dead stock fabrics and second-hand, lots of fast fashion and John Lewis fabrics that you might recognise from your own homes and wardrobes. And when I started Roop, that was my only place to get fabric from. So I accidentally started a sustainable business by using this dead stock fabric and making limited pieces. People really loved that notion that they were buying something of a really small run. And then I just extended that practice into other areas of my business. As I grew, I found larger sustainable suppliers and dead stock suppliers, and I've just continued on my path, and I think it was a really good way to start my business sustainably, because it's meant that I didn't want to change my practices.
So the main ways I like to incorporate sustainability into Evie Joynes, the main way is making everything to order. So aside from small wholesale orders, everything is made once the customers place the order, which means that I'm not making excess garments. And then the other two ways are in fabrication. So I try to use all dead stock or natural fabrics, so that it's either was like a waste fabric or an off-cut, or it's biodegradable. And then I also use like minimal packaging, and then yeah, just small quantities. That's the main thing.
So I am fairly new in my kind of business journey, so still starting out, but predominantly it's focusing on using natural fibres where I can, but also I use a technique called fully fashion knitting. So I have like a big industrial machine, and with fully fashion knitting you shape the piece of knitwear. You kind of like knit it into a shape, as opposed to cut and sew where you would knit a fabric and cut it into a shape and you would have a lot more waste. So that's kind of predominantly how I do it, and I make like a few small limited number of pieces which I put up for sale, and then once they're gone I do made to order. So if anyone wants to buy stuff, they buy it and I'll make it to order. So yeah.
I think for Norah Store, so I'm not a designer. I work with a lot of designers and work really closely with brands, bringing them to the UK. But we work kind of, every single brand's sustainability story is different, but as you can see, but I think the transparency is the main thing, is just kind of having that honesty, and as you saw in the film, being able to trace. It's so hard to trace absolutely where everything is from, but I think the thing with sustainability journey that a lot of fashion brands are on is just about like trying and doing our best and kind of getting there. But like Evie was saying, I only work with small numbers of stock that we buy in. And then if it does well, we'll reorder, again, just to kind of try and eliminate waste, and we don't do big sales, because so much going to landfill. So the next one I wanted to ask was, do you think films like this, and kind of having more discussion of our impact on the environment, are actually changing the way that the public shops, or are we kind of talking to a room of people that have the same opinion?
I think it's hard to know, because when we were talking about it in the studio, we were saying all of our friends and our buyers or customers, they have the same opinion as us. So sometimes it's really difficult to see how much of an impact the sustainable industry is having. And there was a bit in the film where the buyers were coming to Paris and they were just like, oh, it's too expensive. And that really just like gets you in the heart a little bit, because I think that is the problem all the time, because it's such a small part of the industry. The cost at the moment is the biggest like barrier, and I don't know, I honestly don't know. I think it's grown, like since COVID when I started, I think the industry is bigger, and I think there are some really nice small waves happening, but I think it's going to be a long time before it's pushed out further into the industry for sure.
Yeah, I think like Natasha said, it's hard to tell because you can't really gauge it. We kind of are in circles where everyone cares about sustainable fashion, but I do think that the more people learn about it, even with films like this, you're gonna, like, I'll talk about this film now to like family members and friends that maybe don't know that much about sustainability, and then I feel like the word does spread, and films like this start a conversation around sustainable fashion, and I just think that the younger generation is becoming a lot more eco-conscious, and they're starting to outgrow fast fashion's values, because they have their own set of values that don't really align. So I think that it might seem like slow progress, but I do think that like there's something happening there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think like social media is like, it's just so key in making it all happen and like continuing the conversation, and it might sometimes feel like it's just a thing you talk about all the time, and is it really doing anything? But like it's not gonna get anywhere if you don't keep doing it. And you know, I mean, you look at like big brands now, they're starting to like make changes. Like H&M are doing like, you know, it might be like a token kind of sustainable thing, but it obviously is, they're doing it for a reason because it is important to people. And yeah, I mean, I think like it will eventually make more difference, but yeah, you just got to keep going with it, haven't you?
So yeah, kind of going on from that, and obviously Manchester's fashion scene is very fast fashion focused. We know the big ones, Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, and I think, you know, a lot of the fashion industry in this country is in London, and we've all chosen to live here for various reasons and want to work in fashion, and we've almost had to make our own like community, because unless you want to work for those fast fashion brands, there kind of isn't the work to go into. Alright. So kind of, what does this community mean to you, and how's that impacted your business? And I think it's not just the community of us in the studio, it's like all the people that we talk to, designers, vintage sellers, and it is a really small kind of close-knit community that's kind of had to try and make something happen. So yeah, how's that kind of impacted your practice?
I mentioned that I started my business during COVID, so I was just on my own in my back bedroom sewing all day and all night, and I found my community of other small sustainable businesses through Instagram, and it is one of the only things that kept me going, because I was just sewing for no reason for such a long time until it started to take off. And then when I was back in the real world and I got to meet these people in real life, it's just been like a lifeline. When you're small and you're starting out, you have no idea what you're doing, and I think meeting people who also have no idea of what they're doing is very validating. And now we all kind of a little bit know what we're doing, and we just like really motivate each other to stay within our ethics and do best for our businesses and our customers. So yeah, I love it, and it's just like the community continues to grow, and I just think Manchester's becoming a really exciting place for fashion.
Yeah, I mean, the community in Manchester's been so important to me. I came from working in high street design in London, and I found it really depressing. Like how it's kind of like what it showed in the film. You don't really see the supply chain. You send off a sketch and then you see the finished product like weeks or months later. So it's nice to be in a community where everyone kind of has the same mission, and you can, like, everyone can relate in what we're trying to do, and we share the same passions. And I feel like every day, like, we're asking questions to each other, we're learning from each other, and it's just kind of accelerating our work really and getting it to like a better point. So yeah, it's really important to kind of have people to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated in June, and when I graduated I was looking for like opportunities and jobs in knitwear in the north, and particularly Manchester, and I just couldn't really find anything with brands that kind of their beliefs aligned with a sort of company that I wanted to work for. So that's kind of part of the reason why I started like pushing forward Sandwith Studio, was to be like, maybe there's a gap in the market, but also I want to be making things that I'm like proud to have made and put out there. And just like being a part of this community that like I feel is growing just feels so special. Like not only being in the studio with you guys, but just like, yeah, just creating connections with other kind of like shops or brands or like people just like making stuff is like so special, and feels like, yeah, something is growing and happening more in Manchester, which is great.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is we've just had a 5-month pop-up in the Northern Quarter, and I was really, really worried that even though I love everything that we stock, that it wasn't going to translate to kind of the general public who have got H&M down the street, which is so much cheaper and has so much more to offer. But actually, I do think kind of the public are getting behind this. General attitudes are changing, because I was kind of amazed at how many people are getting it and talking about it now, and it's not as much of a niche thing. And I feel like, I mean, all of these designers are stocked in the shop, and people come in and absolutely love that it's made in Manchester or made in Stockport, and to kind of be able to say that, you know, we know the designers. And I think there is this kind of thing that people don't just want something, they want something that means something a bit more, and they're going to keep. So there is a bit of hope. So next one is, how do you tread the line between staying sustainable and relevant? Because a lot of the fashion industry is trend-led, trends come and go so quickly, and how do you kind of, if we're kind of looking at people and keeping stuff for a long time, how are we keeping that relevant? I know you kind of can't completely back away from trends, so for us, everything that we do's kind of got a little bit of a nod to the 60s. We started as a vintage shop, and that's just always been kind of like modern designs, like bold colours but very wearables, been kind of what we choose, even though we don't sell vintage anymore. And you know, certain trends that are coming, for example, the Greta Gerwig Barbie film's coming out soon, and for autumn winter this year, pink is everywhere. We've seen it in the collections, and that's something that works well for us. But other trends, you know, we kind of, it wouldn't work for our brand, and that's how we kind of manage that. But I think it is hard if something comes in to fashion that you know is going to be fleeting, but everyone's buying it. How do you kind of work that into your business?
So I'm an accessories company, so even less so than a like a clothing company. I don't have seasons, and the way that I try and stay relevant is that I change my colours and my fabrics, but I keep my designs the same. And I tried really hard, and still do, to build a community within my brand. So I often ask customers on Instagram or in my newsletter what colours or fabrics they're really gravitating towards, if they're loving a product more, do they want it bigger, smaller, more pockets, more zips, less buttons, all of this kind of stuff. So my trends are led by my customers and not so much by the trends in the industry. And then if I absolutely love something, like I love pink, so I'm just definitely going to make my bag in pink. But I wouldn't stray away from my ethics or my brand story just to hop on a trend. And I think it's really important when you can build like a brand identity and keep that going. Your customers really value that.
Yeah, similar to what you guys have said, I think I would be willing to engage in trends, but they have to be the right trends for my brand. So if I've got like a core aesthetic, and the brands, the trends that I engage with would have to be aligned with that aesthetic, essentially. I just feel like it makes it so much more timeless. So for example, like Barbiecore pink, I love pink as well. I feel like we're all on the same page. But I mean, I've always loved pink, so it's more like, even though it's now a trend, I would have done it anyway at some point. It's just kind of doing it at the right time so that it's like relevant to the culture. So yeah, I think just picking things that you know that your customer, they might buy it when it's fashionable, but they'll continue wearing it forever. It's timeless enough that they won't like get sick of it and bin it off after one season.
Yeah, I mean, probably fairly similar to you guys, but I try and stick within, I kind of use colour palettes that feel kind of fit within my kind of branding. So because it's knitwear and I want to use predominantly natural fibres, quite like a mix of neutral, natural tones, but then with some that kind of, you know, are a bit more poppy sort of thing. But yeah, as long as it fits within my kind of aesthetic, because I was making a colour palette the other week and like put pink in it and I was like, no, like it just doesn't work for me. Like, yeah, so like, you know, yeah, you just got to take them for like, you know, if they work for your brand, I guess, which unfortunately pink isn't going to work for mine just yet.
So I've just got a couple more questions and then we'll let you guys ask anything. Okay, so how do you think that, or do you have any kind of tips for how the general public can, or the consumer, or everyday person can shop more sustainably on a budget, or are there ways that they can do that without kind of going and investing in, you know, very expensive new sustainable pieces?
So I like to romanticize my whole life, and I like extend that to my clothes. So like this jumpsuit is probably one of my most worn jumpsuits. Well, not just jumpsuits, I only own two. And like my most worn pieces, and like now it's got like another memory. So like every time I pick something up, I just remember all the things that it's done. And I think connecting your clothes to your life is like a better way to see them than just something you put on your body. And then I'm just like obsessed with like charity shops and spending hours and hours and hours on eBay and Vinted. And I just like the thrill of finding like the perfect thing. And I think we've got so used to having fashion so accessible that if we fall in love with it again, but in like a different way, where we're building our own personal style, our own personal brand, and we go out to hunt for pieces that are really special, that will be with us for a really long time, I think that's better than just saying, right, I've got to buy a white shirt, but I've got to spend 200 quid instead of £4. It's like reframe how you shop, and that will eventually be more sustainable, I think.
The main thing for me, I think, is rather than just listening to when a brand tells you this is sustainable, decide for yourself like what's going to make it sustainable. Because if you buy something that's sustainable but you only wear it once, it's not really sustainable anymore. So really consider how timeless a piece is, how many times you're going to wear it, and as well as how it was produced and the fabrication, and the quality of the garment. If you buy something that's a poor quality, it won't last as long. So really think about like the timeline of a piece when you buy it, and really like look into second-hand, vintage, charity shops. Are like such a great way for everyone to engage with sustainable fashion, because you can do it on such a budget. You can get like amazing pieces. Catherine Hamnett, who was in the documentary, I got a Catherine Hamnett blazer for £2 from a charity shop in my hometown. So like you can get such amazing quality pieces. Like all the designer clothes that I own are second hand, but I wouldn't have had access to that if I wasn't buying them second hand. So yeah, there's some amazing options out there where you can get great clothes on a budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think like sustainability can like mean so many different things, like you guys were saying, and it's really important to remember that it isn't always like super accessible in the way that, you know, you might see sustainability as like being, but just thinking about, you know, your clothes in a like circular sense is like so important, and you know, thinking about how you're going to care for it and what's going to happen to it after you maybe don't want it anymore, and just like the mending or, you know, upcycling process can be like so great and like really accessible. And I know Toast do a thing where they like take back damaged pieces of clothing and like have people darn them and mend them and send them back. And they actually did like an online class where they taught you how to darn, and just, you know, you can find so many online resources on how to like fix and mend your clothing, and yeah, just thinking about it in that sense is also a really good way to be sustainable. So, yeah.
Can I say one more thing? So we were also talking a lot about renting, and my bags are stocked on her, and even though I would love the money from the whole bag, I really encourage a lot of people that are unsure about buying one of my pieces outright to rent it first, and I get a lot of people then coming back to me saying, I loved it, I want it, I need it, I'm going to have it forever. But when before I went on her, I had a big meeting with them, and they said that they have this like full, I don't know what the word is, they have like this rule. So for it to go onto the website, they want it to be bomb-proof, and that means 25 to 40 wears. And I think that really showed me, that changed the way that I bought my fabrics. So I used to work solely in satin, but satin often gets lots of snags in, and then that just reduces the life because it doesn't look as pretty anymore. So now I work with organic cottons, recycled or refound denims, and taffeta. And it doesn't snag and it lasts forever, and then I achieved that role of something being worn and used 25 to 40 times.
I think following on from that, that thing of, I think it used to almost be embarrassing to wear the same thing more than once, and I think people's kind of attitudes are really shifting. We've been styling our spring-summer collections that we've got for a shoot on Friday, and working with the stylist, it was just all about, actually, it's one of the smaller collections that we've got, but it's about, we want to shoot each piece in so many different ways to show people that, yes, these pieces are a bit more expensive because, you know, it's not fast fashion, it's small independent brands, but you buy one piece that's really beautiful and you really love, and you are going to wear it and wear it and wear it, rather than kind of having something that you don't feel anything about. And I think that's something that I noticed having the shop, was kind of having those conversations with people about, you know, people, if the regulars that came in saw me in the same thing a million times, but just wearing it in different ways. Thanks, babes. So yeah, I think it's like nice that the kind of conversation is changing. And yeah, we're just gonna open up if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask. We only have one microphone, which is why we've been passing it along, but we can, if anyone wants to ask anything. So just want to say thank you so much for coming, and thank you again to Fashion Reimagined for letting us host this screening.